You probably have seen successful people saying that if you work hard, take some risks, and never give up, you are going to be successful. The path to success has never been so clear. We have documented the lives of the endless numbers of the successful peoples to figure out what truly makes them successful. And it seems like if we just follow their advices and work hard enough, we should be able to replace their success. But why aren't there more successful people? Why are the overwhelming majority who follow this type of the advice end up achieving nothing? What I want to figure out is in this video, can you really get rich by working hard regardless of who you are? Or it is just the myth that we have been fed with. By the end of this video, we will understand how much luck plays in each and everyone's success. And do you even stand a chance to be the next Bill Gates or the Warren Buffett if you work as hard as them? The dark side of becoming successful. Back in the mid 20th century, during the World War II, Britain started losing lots of aircraft, and it became a quite serious problem. So they tried to figure out a way to reduce that number. Otherwise, they might lose the war if they keep losing so many planes. The logical thing was to put more armor around the aircraft to make it more resistant against the bullets. But that was not the option theirs. Adding more armor on the to already heavy aircraft would take it much slower and an easier target for the enemy. So engineers came up with another solution. Let's just add extra armor to the parts on the aircraft that gets hit the most. They took a look at the aircraft that came back after the missions and realized that the wings of the aircraft had a lot more bullet dust than the other parts, such as the engine. So naturally, the engineers came to the conclusion that the enemy targets the wings more often. If we just add more armor to those areas, to the aircraft, they will crash less often. Right? Wrong. Despite the fact that it looks like the logical solution, it's not. The engineers based their options on their aircraft that returns back home from the battlefield and didn't take into the account all the aircraft that got hit in the other place and were crashed. The reason why so little aircraft had bullet holes in their engines is that most of them couldn't make it because and were destroyed on the battlefield. If you visit the hospital, you will see many more people with injuries in their legs and arms than people with injuries in their chests or heads. That's not because people get shot in the head or chest, but rather because they end up dead in the battleground. This concept is known as the survivalship bias. Understanding the implications of this bias can help us make the more relation decisions. Let's make an example of the YouTube. There's some YouTubers who dropped out of college and started streaming video games both on Twitch and YouTube, and some of them have ended up really successful. They earned more money than a college graduated could potentially make. From one side, it looks like if you are a good gamer and a commentator, if you also drop out of college, work super hard, to be patient, you might end up as successful as them, which in theory seems light. However, what we didn't take into account is the huge number of the hardworking gamers who didn't exactly that but failed. Steve Jobs dropped out of the college and built the world's largest company, but how many other young entrepreneurs dropped out of the college to start a company and made it? There are thousands of the others who tried to fail, but you have never heard about them. And that begs the questions. You really in control of your life, or freedom is that just an illusion? The truth is the numbers of the factors that influence our success is way beyond our control. Take your butterfly for example. such a small and a weak creature that it has absolutely no influence over anything, and in this world. But the flap of the butterfly's wings in the Amazon forest creates a tiny change in the atmosphere pressures. Over time, they compound and cause the tornado in Texas. Of course, the tornado wasn't slowly created by the butterfly because there are so many factors that influence it on the weather, including the flap of the butterfly wings. But the world is connected in so many ways you can imagine. Back in the 1962, during the Cold War, U.S. destroyer ship located in the Russian nuclear submarine in the international waters near Cuba. To force the submarine to come to the surface, the U.S. destroyer began dropping the explosives. The Russian nuclear submarine lost contact with the Moscow for the numbers of the days already, so the officer thought that war broke out between the Soviet Union and the US since the US destroyer have been dropping explosives on them. The captain of the submarine, Valentin Savitsky, decided that the war might already have started and wanted to launch the nuclear torpedo. But the launch a nuclear torpedo, three officers on the board had to agree unanimously to automate the nuclear launch. Vasily Arkhipov, who one of the officers, was against the launch. If it wasn't for him, the nuclear torpedo would have been launched to the United States and the Soviet Union would have turned each other into nuclear uh, wasteland. Which means the dot-com revolution wouldn't have taken place in the Silicon Valley, which means Jeff Bezos wouldn't become the richest person in the world. It's not to say that Vasily Arkhipov made Jeff Bezos so successful, but things would have turned differently if he has authorized the launch. Imagine how many more factors are there to influence your life, factors you don't even consider when you plan your life. So let's try to answer the questions of this video. Can you really get rich by the working hard? The answer is complicated. In both yes and no. If you were born in the 1970s in the third world country or in Africa, no matter how talented and smart you are, you probably would have died from the malaria or from any other disease. Even if you ended up surviving, you had to work 12 hours a day to put food on the table because you would die from the hunger otherwise. On the other hand, if you were born in California in the 1970s, you would have been in the middle of the internet revolutions. When you reach your 20s, Chase, you would start an internet company or join the war would be much higher than if you were born in the third world country back then. Here's another example. If you ask the successful hockey player why he has been so successful, he will probably tell you that he has been working super hard, he has been consistent and never gave up despite the hardships, but he would never mention the fact that one of the reasons he is successful because he has been born in the 2nd of January. The cutoff dates for kids hockey wage is the 1st of January. Kids who are born in the first part of the year are on average a little bigger and taller than the December-born players. This head start gives players born in the first months of the year a lifelong advantage. As the kids, they are more likely to be chosen for the top their competitive teams. They get more ice time and better coaching. That's why almost half, 40% of the players who are selected into the top league have been born between January and March, while those born in the last quarter of the year might as well just give up on hockey. And that's the case with everything and everyone. What eventually determines your success is everything, even the factor that you have no control over, such as your birthday, birthplace, your parents, the relationship between you and parents, the school you go to, and a million other factors. We have made the entire video explaining why you will most probably end up poor if you are born into a low income family. But now you're probably discouraged. You might say, what's the point of doing anything if I'm not in control? Well, if you don't work hard, you will most definitely be poor. There are certainly things we can control, but if you are born in the right place and don't have have to spend 12 hours a day just to put the food on the table, you stand a chance to achieve the financial independence. You might stand a chance to become the millionaire if you push the hard enough. Maybe not a billionaire because the only 2,800 people could become one out of 7.8 billion that inhabit this planet, but there's just a way to know that unless you try. So you are left with the two options. You're either going to try and find out, or don't, and stay where you are, or maybe the add odds that in the favor, and the only thing that is left is you try. The choice is yours.